want me to take this with my phone? That's perfect. Just send over. It's all good. Perfect.
Ooh! I feel like I should be giving a lecture.
So welcome everyone. Welcome to Leaders in Lowell with Deesha Dyer. I'm Bridget Crowell, the co-founder of Leaders in Lowell. So for those of you who may not know, Leaders in Lowell is a nonprofit speaker series that I founded in 2017 with my co-founder, Daniel Russell. So Leaders in Lowell aims to educate, inspire, and connect the greater Lowell community through our events with inspirational leaders from a variety of fields and backgrounds. Daniel and I have had the pleasure of working with many organizations, both local and national, to make these events happen. We are especially grateful to our partner organizations, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation and America's Promise Alliance, as well as Middlesex Community College for sponsoring this series in 2020. Thanks to these wonderful organizations, we are able to put on events like tonight, where we'll be welcoming the former White House Social Secretary, Deesha Dyer. This will be the first in a series of events focused on civic engagement and community involvement. Tonight, Deesha will be speaking on her life and career, as well as civic engagement, community engagement, and more. We are so glad to have her tonight. And now, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Deesha Dyer.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Is this on? I'm also from Philadelphia, so probably don't need to use my phone. Can you hear me now? Yes. Is this good? Y'all, aren't they amazing? Like, can y'all give it up for them? I'm talking to them back, I'll say backstage, because we're super fans here. I'm talking to them backstage, I'm like, well, who runs this? Like, who does this? I'm like, we do. And I'm like, what? I mean, how wonderful is that, though? So, you guys are amazing, so thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we just wanted to, start out. If you had to pick one or two experiences, professional or personal, that have had the biggest impact on your life and helped be who you are today, what would they be?
That's a great question. So I would say if I had to pick one or two, I would, since we're in a community college, I would say going back to college when I was 28 years old, it was community college. I dropped out of college when I was 17 years old. I just didn't like it. That's all there is to it. I just didn't like it. And I didn't understand how I was paying for something I didn't like. And so I left school, left college when I was 17. And I was fine with that. Like, my family wasn't really a big education family. We weren't really like, you have to go to college. My dad was like, just don't get in trouble and do good. Like, he really didn't say anything about college. I was like, oh, I can do that, check. Although I still got in trouble, but anyway. So when I went back to college, when I was 28 years old, that was my third attempt back to go to college. I tried to go to school from age I said I wanted to go back around age 24. And no college would really accept me at that time. I had dropped out of University of Cincinnati when I was 17. I had to go fight all these financial aid records. I had let my grades slip, so I didn't even have a good college experience when I was there with grades. So I would say that going to community college, which was the only college, Community College of Philadelphia, was the only college that would accept me. That was it. I tried every other college in Philadelphia. No one would take me. So I would say that kind of was a catalyst. That was a big moment for me. Because that is what got me to the White House. I think that had I gone a different route, I would have never applied to be a White House intern when I was 30. I would have probably never got the White House internship, but I think that, it stood out to people in the Obama White House that she's a 31-year-old who got back up on her feet, going to community college, and now she's applying for an internship. I thought that only people that went to Ivy Leagues would be at the White House. I was like, why would they choose me? Community College of Philadelphia, I don't know nobody, I don't even know, I just like this president, I want to work for him, and they did choose me. So I would say that, I think that without community college, I would have never probably got to the White House. The second pivotal thing I would say is probably, I don't know, life experience, that's a lot. I just turned 42, that's a big life I gotta think about. I think that going to a boarding school, I went to a boarding school in Hershey, Pennsylvania, called Milton Hershey, I don't know if anybody's familiar, but it's a school for kids. Who's familiar? Oh, you know Milton Hershey?
Yes, my aunt was there, and my cousin's daughter is a teacher there.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool, yes, okay. So Milton Hershey, if you don't know, is a school for kids or children from financially challenged backgrounds. And Milton and Catherine Hershey could not have children naturally, so they opened up an orphanage for orphan boys. and then it kind of expanded all the way. Now it's still open. But I went there when I was 9 years old. My parents decided, they were divorced, they decided basically just couldn't take care of me. It was a big financial burden, my brother and I, and put us in boarding school. So we grew up with 16 brothers and sisters, like, in my house for 8 years. It was crazy. But those are my family. So I would say those two pivotal moments that going to Hershey kind of taught me how to get along with anybody and everybody. You didn't really have a choice. So I would say those two things.
And so how do you think your unconventional education path and career path kind of prepared you for your career in the White House?
Well, y'all, the White House is crazy. So I'm very like on PC too. So like, who's ever filming this? Good luck. So I would say that my unconventional path. I think the thing about it is like we think, and again, I speak in Obama White House terms because after January 21st, I lost all interest, right? So I wasn't getting a paycheck, not because of anything else. And I was like, I'm just not my job anymore, right? So I think that, we think that you have got to have all these pedigrees and all these things to be a public servant and to be a politician. And I'm not saying that because of any current administration or anything that I feel, but that's not really true. You have to just have a heart to serve people. And I've always served people, like since I was young. And, I used to do things with people who had HIV/AIDS in the 90s when I didn't understand why the news was saying dumb things, like it's a gay disease. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? And so I was like, I want to go out and learn about this a little bit more. So I've always served people. I've always done human rights stuff before it was like trendy. And I think that all of that prepared me for the White House. Because once you get there, you serve the whole American public. That's everyone, right? And I think that, I used to be a hip hop dancer, a break dancer, and I used to be a journalist. And I never knew, I just did that because I loved the hip hop culture, right? I didn't think it would come back to help me at the White House. Well, it did, because my last 2 years, I was in charge of the entertaining at the White House. So then I could go get DJs and MCs and or different artists. I didn't know that it would all come back to me. So I think that that's how it prepared me a little bit.
So kind of what was your job like working in the White House, and how did you rise up the ranks to become the White House Social Secretary?
I don't even know. So my job. So when I went to the White House, I was an intern in the fall of 2009. I was an intern in a department called Scheduling in Advance. The Scheduling in Advance department is the department that's in charge of the president's schedule and his travel. So if the president was coming to Lowell, Massachusetts, then there's a team that goes out ahead of him a week ahead of time and sets everything up. So all the president has to do is walk in here and sit down. That's it. And he just does what he does. So my job was really the person that used to help prepare that with a whole team of people. I was an intern for that department, and then I got hired the following year. I left, and I was like, that was amazing. I worked for Barack Obama. I saw him once, whatever. But I flew on Air Force One as an intern, which was absolutely insane. So I did that, and I left, and I was like, I'm done here. That was great, but I don't ever need to come back to politics again. I was like, that's good enough for me. I'm so thankful for that experience. And then they called me back for a full-time job the following year. So the full-time job I got was I was in charge of the interns in the department. So I was essentially my boss when I was an intern. So then I did that, and then I was like, well, I want to travel with the president more, and I want to do more stuff in the world. And so there was a job open that was in charge of their lodging when they would travel. If they would come here, I would call, the UMass Inn where I'm staying and say, we need, 35 rooms, we need a suite, whatever. That was my job, which was great because they always treated me great because I was representing the president, so I always had a suite too. And so I did that for a number of years, but then I missed being in touch with the community. And so I switched to the next job, which was Deputy Social Secretary. So I was number 2 in charge in the House, basically helping Mrs. Obama host everything behind the first openly gay Social Secretary, Jeremy Bernard. And we did everything in the House. I got to bring in community groups. When Jeremy said he was leaving, I was like, well, that's great, I'm leaving too. And he's like, well, no, you should go for the job. And I was like, there's no way they're gonna pick me for this job. This job is the creme de la creme of Washington. You are, the social person of the whole city, and I'll even go now. So I was just like, but I interviewed for it, and Mrs. Obama chose me for the position. And I think that, the social secretary is a job that's every day. Your job is to welcome people into the White House from all backgrounds. So everything that, like, even like when the Pope came, for instance, I was like, like my first 4 months, they were like, the Pope was coming. I was like, well, that's nice. Like, who's in charge of that? You know? And they're like, well, you are. I was like, you are who? You know? And so I was like, well, what do I do? Like, who knows? Like, if somebody says the Pope's coming to your house, like, you know, like, how do you prepare? Like, get out groceries? So I was like, I don't know what to do. So, and so the first thing I did was I went to a Catholic mass, and they were just like, you're not doing church for him. I was like, well, I don't really know. And so I was able to, in that position, and I tell the story because I was able to then bring in community elements. Like, for instance, the choir that sang for the Pope, and I love this, like, it was up to me to pick that choir. Out of everybody that was writing us all over America, like, I want to sing at the White House with the Pope and Barack Obama, blah, blah. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I don't want that. I want, like, a local choir, like, of people who've been Catholics, like, all of their life, and, like, will pass out when they see this man. So I also wanted African American Catholics because we don't see a lot of them, right? So I found a historic church in D.C. that was an old African American Catholic parish, and I said, you know, do you have a choir? And they were like, yeah. I was like, can they sing? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, can I come hear you? I heard about 5 minutes, so I was like, you're hired. And they were like, what? And it was this thing where that was my job. My job was to make sure that when people tuned in to watch the Pope and Barack Obama and at the White House lawn, that they saw this Black Catholic choir that was like all people that were like over 60, right? And they were amazing. And it was one of these things where I realized that that's the power that I had to bring community to the White House, to bring myself to the White House, to say, I'm going to go pick these 2 students out of nowhere, and you're going to be the ones to greet the president. And so my job was really to make sure the White House represented America and to really welcome people in, whether it was the Pope or whether it was Beyonce or whether it was a student group. Like, it was, everybody got treated the exact same way. Like, you had to go through security no matter who you were. And my job was to welcome people in. That's how I would say.
So that being said, do you have a favorite memory of, you know, being in the White House?
So many memories. I would say that, how recorded is this? How recorded is this? So, I'm gonna be honest with y'all because I came all the way in the cold. Okay, so I'll be honest. When I saw Justin Trudeau in person, I was like, yo, the man is like, woo. So I would say that was a great memory, right? But I think what you all are looking for is something more inspirational. So I would say that when we had probably my favorite moments, I would clip them together, is when we would have like Black people over the age of 90 come to the White House, because to them, even over the age of they would never have thought they would see Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and Malia and Sasha in the White House, and they would just cry and cry. And I didn't understand it. I was just like, okay, like, you know, you gotta keep the line moving. And the president said, Deesha, like, hold up, like, let them take some time. And I think that was always so special to me, because for me, that was the power of what we were able to do. And before these people died, they saw this in their lifetime, things that they fought for in the beginning, who they never thought would happen. And I think my grandparents were a great example. My grandparents never got to come to the White House, but when President Obama went to Philadelphia, I surprised them. And they like totally forgot I was even there. And they were just like crying. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it's just, you know, my grandfather did a lot with civil rights. My grandmother did too. So to them, I think those probably my more special moments. But Justin Trudeau was really great.
So while working in the White House, you probably encountered a lot of styles of leadership, you know, from all over the world. Did you have a particular one that impacted you or that you tried to emulate?
That's a great question. I think for me, I never tried to be a leader in my entire life. Like, I didn't know, I just did what I thought was supposed to get done. I was just like, well, if nobody else is gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I didn't know that was leadership. I just figured it was getting the task done. You know, and often, you know, as you all can see, as I feel like we're already best friends here, like, I'm very like vocal and very open and very honest about stuff. So my style of approaching people or problems was not one that people welcomed all my life. It was just like, she's loud, she's aggressive, she's negative, she always brings up this. And I'm like, no, it's not that. It's just that I want us to think a different way. And if I'm not being heard, I'm going to shout. Like, I'm going to, and that's just how I am. And right now, that's like a thing, right? Like, women, be loud. Like, back then it was just like this, like this girl, like, we'll be lucky if she makes it like at high school. So I think that I never realized the power of my voice and the power of my leadership style because I didn't even know what it was. I just always just did what I thought was right. And I always tried to stand up for people all the time, even if I stood by myself. And it's isolating. So I think that when I became a leader at the White House, I probably didn't do a great job when I started because I never knew what I was supposed to do. And then it's just like, oh wait, like you're in charge of people and you're in charge of this and you're in charge of like, putting together this entire program for Pope Francis with 12,000 people with Secret Service. And I'm like, why are you looking at me? Like, I don't know what, But I think that what I decided to do is instead of me always saying I'm the leader, I'm in charge, to say, what do you all think is the best way to do this? Like, what are your ideas in this? Instead of always being my ideas. And that way, people felt included in the conversation. My leadership style is very clear about, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, I'm not afraid to admit that. My ego does not, because I think being a leader is you have to admit what you don't know. If you go out and you lead on something you don't know, you're going to mess up not only yourself, but everybody else too. So I am fine with saying, you know what, like, I know how to do a lot of things, but this, I'm not sure how to do this. Like, do you all know how to do this? Can you show me how to do it or do it? And I think that took me a while because that's an ego thing, because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing as a leader. But then also I realized that empowering my team to be in charge wasn't a threat to me. So I think that that's how I tried to continue leading, and that's how I try to even still work on today. Because sometimes it's hard, to sit back and say like, you know what, I'm in charge here, but I'm going to give somebody else the floor, and I'm going to give somebody else credit for the, But even like, when one of my team members had a great idea for the president or something, I'd say, like, I'd want to be the one to tell the president, be like, it's my idea. But I'm just like, that's not a good thing to do, right? So I'd just be like, oh, it's so-and-so's idea. And he's like, that was a great idea. He didn't fire me to think I was terrible. He was just like, that's good for you, giving shout-outs to your team. So I think that that's the kind of style I try to lead with, being inclusive and then also being quiet and letting other people try out their leadership skills, and checking my ego, which is really hard, but I'm working on myself. So yeah.
So what qualities do you think you displayed while being an intern at the White House that made them hire you the year after that and keep going up the ranks in the White House?
Yeah, I wish my boss was here and be like, yeah, how about you answer? So I think that, what happened when I was a White House intern, I was older than everyone else. So I think I'd already displayed a sense of maturity that just comes from getting older. Not that I was like, I had been in the workplace for 9 years. I had traveled, I had done all these things that a lot of these college students who were interns hadn't done. And so what happened in November of 2009, if you all remember, the big shooting in Fort Hood happened, in Fort Hood, Texas. And this, one soldier shot another, like 12 or 11 soldiers and killed them. It was a big thing on campus. And I remember when that happened and, not thinking, obviously the president's gonna go, but like, not thinking, what I have to do with it is kind of like, making spreadsheets or doing whatever I was asked to do. And they asked me to actually go to Fort Hood, Texas as an intern. And I was like, why am I going, like, what am I gonna do there? And the whole thing is my team, as I explained earlier, the advanced team is a team that goes ahead of the president. So every fall, the president goes to Asia, every fall for these summits. So the whole full-time staff was in Asia. There were only interns left in our department. And so I had to go. And I was just like, I don't know, what am I gonna do when I get to Fort Hood? And like, this tragedy just happened, I'm an intern, like, I was legit like a secretary and hip hop writer like 3 months ago. And I was like, why am I going? And they were like, because we know that you've done social work things before. You were always in the community. We need you to go down there and help out with the press team when the president comes down. And I think that there was not time for me to think, well, how do I do this? There was a time for me to say, I don't know how to do it, like maybe a younger person would have done because they just had not been in that situation before. And so I think that I had to just buck up and I just had to get it done, right? And during the whole time I kept thinking to myself, I'm just an intern. But I was like, I can't say that out loud. I just have to be here for these soldiers. I have to be here for this space. I have to honor these families. I have to do all these things and then also welcome the president. So I think that the maturity that I displayed while I did that under pressure, I think caught their eye. why. I think it was kind of like, I won't say that's the only thing, but I think that was one thing where it was just like, I just put my head down and was like, what needs to get done? Like, if the soldiers need donuts, if they need napkins, like I don't care what they need, like I was there. And then I was helping the press team cover it in a proper way. And so I think that was probably, you know, what made them, I think, look at me differently. But I also had always mentored all my life, and the job that they were looking at, they hired me for, was to be in charge of other interns. So it was kind of like a natural fit. So that's what I would say.
So you were very successful working in the White House. And
I hope so. Yeah. That's what they say.
everyone has a personal definition of success. So how do you think you would define success?
I didn't get fired, y'all. I did not get impeached nor fired. Neither did our president, so that's how I define success. But I think for me, you know, the success for me was, it was not defined by my personal climb. I never thought that I would be at the White House, and so I never had a goal of being like, I want to be at the top. I just kept chasing opportunities that spoke to what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel more, and I was like, I want to see the world more, so I decided to apply for the hotel job. I want to be able to like go get communities and bring them into the White House to sing or dance or do a tour. So I applied for the job that was allowed to do that, and then I became the top person. So I never chased like, I want to be at the top, because I didn't know what that looked like. I don't care if they were like, you're getting Barack Obama's coffee every day. I'd be like, sign me up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm good with that, you know? So I think that really like success for me was defined by the faces of people that would come to the White House. I think that the groups and the lives that we change just by saying, you know, like for example, for when the National African American Museum opened in DC, I was like, what can we do? Like, what can we do that's so different? And I was like, well, marching bands are such part of the culture. Like, why don't we go get a marching band and be on the front lawn of the White House? And Obama's like, I'm sorry, what do you want to do? And I was like, we're a marching band, like a whole marching band. And everyone's like, this is, I don't know how this idea. And I was like, let's just do it. Let's just do, you know. And they listened to me, but we chose a college that wasn't one of the popular HBCUs on purpose, because we didn't want somebody who always got clout. So we chose a college that was amazing, like out of Tennessee, you know, and they were really great, but the lie with their faces when they met the president, they had no idea they were going to meet him. He like walked outside while they were performing, and they're like, like they barely could keep it together. That to me, I know, was a memory that they'll always have, that they'll always go back to when they need to be inspired, and I was able to create those memories. So I think that's how I define success, is by the memories and the legacy that I left through just my role of what I did. So that's what I would say is how I defined it.
That's great.
Thank you.
So shifting gears a little bit, you obviously brought in a lot of different people and you worked to engage the community both in the White House and before. So how do you think that an everyday citizen can get more civically engaged and make an impact?
That's a great question. I think that there is no blueprint for being a public servant or getting involved in civic engagement. I think that we think that we have to have some superpower to be involved in something, or we have to know, you know, this law and this legislation. Listen, I did not know any of that going to the White House. You know, admittedly, like I'll, say that I have no idea how any of this worked. I knew there was a Senate, I knew there was a House, I knew there was a president. I didn't know who was with who, how that worked, the division of lines. I saw the little Bill movie back in the day when we were in high school. But I don't know none of that stuff. But my heart to serve was so much bigger than that. And I think that what people could do is what do you actually like to do? Like, is it baking stuff? Is it going out and signing people up? Take what you like to do and put it into public service, right? Like for me, I love hip hop, the hip hop culture. I love hip hop music. I love breakdancing. I love graffiti artists. I was like, how could I make this an art that I bring to the White House, right? When I applied for my White House internship, there was an essay that you had to write, and it said like write about how you would change a policy in America. And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to work here. I don't really know. And I wrote about something that I knew nothing about, which was the one-child policy in China. I know nothing about the one-child policy in China, but I was like, that's what they want to know at the White House, so that's going to make me sound so smart. A friend of mine read it and was like, this sounds so bad. Like you basically like looked up an encyclopedia, was like, and I was like, well, I don't know what else to write about. They're like, well, you love hip hop, and I was like, I can write about that, I guess. And so I wrote about how the hip hop culture could be a tool to really fix urban education and reach youth. I didn't think anybody's gonna pay attention to that. I wrote it from my heart. And next thing you know, like people are like, that's what caught our eyes. Like it was so different. Like it was really you. I brought myself to the White House at all times, whether it was welcomed or not. I did. So I think that how people can get involved is don't gauge your level of involvement by what somebody else has. Like right now, some people have time to go door to door. Some people have time to sign people. Some people love Facebook and they love arguing with people. Maybe that's not your thing. If that's not your thing, find out what is your thing. It could be local. Like this, everything, like I love that everybody's involved with the national election, but people don't realize that an election has consequences and rewards, right? So that goes to your city government, that goes to your federal judges, that goes to your school board. There's so many things to get involved with. So I think find your level of involvement, what you want to do, find out what you like to do, and just create a lane for it. That's it. Like they're gonna need whatever public servants going on right now, whatever policy, they need advocates, right? Also at the same time, know that if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Some people are better writing checks, to be honest with you. I don't want some people interacting with the public, right? If you're better writing a check, write a check. Funding always helps as well. So I want people to know there's different ways of being involved, and it's not always just, I have to be out there marching, I have to be out there doing, I have to be out there. Sometimes the best thing you could do is say, you know what, the best way I can help is signing people up online or doing phone banking from my house or writing a check for $25. Do what you could do, but never say that I can't do anything and never think you're not smart enough to be involved in the political process or the public servant process. Because I definitely, like I went to the White House with no degree and graduating in 2012 with my degree. But even so, I was just like, you know, I was there for 3 years without a college degree, but I still somehow climbed up because I was always myself.
So, in fall of 2019, you were a fellow at Harvard's Institute of Politics. So, yeah. So what was that program like, and how did that get started?
So I was a resident fellow at the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School. And Harvard Kennedy School, as you all know or don't know, it's the graduate arm of Harvard, one government school. But they have a thing called the Institute of Politics, which is for undergrads only. So they have 6 resident fellows come in. We actually live there. That's when this was originally scheduled, when I lived here. So we actually live there right on campus. And we teach a study group, but they call it a study group, they don't want to call it a class. And you make up the study group. Like you have to think of yourself what you're going to teach. So last year, Harvard came to me, actually 2018, sorry. Harvard came to me and said, you know, your name's being floated for this fellowship program. And I was like, okay, that's okay. And I said, well, you know, at the time, I couldn't afford, even though it's paid, I couldn't afford to take off this great job that I just had for 3.5 months to come up here. Like it just wasn't an option for me. And so I said, well, I'm really sorry. Like I can't even apply this year. I was like, but any other time, like, you know, keep me posted, keep me in the loop. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I had dinner though with the students who were interning in New York that summer. So I'd already been connected to the school. Then a year passed and I was like, I want to do something different with my life. And I'm very like, it's not the best advice, but I'm very like, I don't want to do this anymore. Find something else to do. Because to me, I don't ever know when life is going to end. And so I'm just like, I'm going to keep doing as much as I want to do whenever I want to do it. So then I was like, I've been at my job for like 1.5 years, and I was like, I'm done with this job. It's amazing, great. But I was like, I want a challenge. I'm not using my brain. I said, oh, that Harvard fellowship. They called me last year. Let me see. And just so happened that the application process was open, and it was like closed in 3 weeks. And so you have to put together an 8-week course of what you're going to teach. You have to teach it every week, and it's open to everybody. So the Cambridge community, undergrads, grads, doesn't cost anything, doesn't have homework. It's basically a study group of you just being able to talk about a topic. The topic that I chose was called From Imposter to Impact. And it's how to get over it. It was really from me feeling like I had imposter syndrome and I didn't believe in myself to then having an impact. So we spent 4 weeks talking about imposter syndrome, believing in yourself, confidence, controlling your own narrative. Then we spent the other 4 weeks being like, okay, what impact you can have on the world when you actually believe in yourself. Because the problem, I think that even Michelle and Barack Obama always said, or Mrs. Obama always says, you know, Deesha, it's never my doubt that you could do the job, but I don't know if you believe in yourself enough to do the job. She never had an issue with like how much I did or did not know. she was like, but if you don't believe in yourself, I can't give you this promotion, right? And it's Michelle Obama, so you like lie, you're like, I believe in myself, I believe in myself. Totally did not believe in myself. And so it took a while for me to realize that, like, I'm Deesha Dyer, like, I'm the White House Social Secretary, like, I'm in charge of all this stuff. Because it was a stunning the whole world that I even had a job at the White House. But then once I got promoted to this top job, it stunned a lot. Everybody was like, what? Like, who is this random person? I was like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, and the Washington Post actually did an article on me, and they were like, we don't know who was this person out the blue that got this top job? And I'm like, I don't know. So I feel like at Harvard I was able to teach that, and it was really great because I think everybody goes through that. So it wasn't just something for the Ivy League kids. It wasn't something for just, you know, people that have been going to politics. I think at some point everybody has this thing where they feel like they don't deserve whatever they have. And I don't know how I know how I got there personally, but I don't know how we have not fixed that even more. Like, we stress so much about going to school, being smart, but for some reason we miss the part about believing in yourself and the confidence and comparison syndrome. And I feel like at Harvard I was able to really speak to a lot of students because a lot of them feel that way going to Harvard. I don't care what people think about it, there's a group of students who still feel like they don't belong there, right? And they would come talk to me every week like, you know, these freshmen that I think I need to leave. And I'm like, why would you leave? Like, why? They're like, because, you know, we were sitting in class and everybody knew about this poem but me. I'm like, you're paying to learn. That's the point of you being there. Like, you're supposed to, if you don't know something, that's good. Your money's being well spent. You're learning. You know what I mean? So I think that, like, my class was all about that. And it was amazing because I got to teach in different classes. I got to be a guest speaker at places. And I loved it because it was the first time I took off from my actual job and said, like, I'm going to actually pursue this avenue. And it was tough because you had to, like, interview with students. And they were amazing. They were just like, how are you going to be interesting? I'm like, I don't know, play songs, dance, I don't know. But we had a great time, and I'm bummed that it's over. It's only one semester. And then we had to move back home. They kicked us out. But it was amazing. So, yeah.
So you worked at Harvard, you worked at the White House, but you also have your own nonprofit, or a nonprofit that you helped found, right? Mentoring young girls. So could you talk a little more about that?
Sure. Like I said, I just start stuff. So even if I don't know how to do it, I'm like, well, I gotta figure it out. So I have an organization called beGirl.world, and the organization is focused on diversifying travel. So we started this in 2014, and it's really to up the numbers of study abroad, to see Black students that study abroad. Right now, out of everybody that studies abroad, 7% are Black students, only 7%. And so I thought that number was just trifling. I was like, this is just ridiculous. And so in my home city of Philadelphia, I went back and said, like, you know, with a friend of mine, what if we start a program that kind of addresses this in high schools? Like, maybe it's these girls don't realize, like, what study abroad is, that it's possible for them to do it, or they think that it's so unaffordable that they just don't try. And I think that really spoke to me because I think many times, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, you just don't even try something because you don't think you're gonna get it, and you don't think you're gonna do it. So you psych yourself out before you even try. So when we started talking to the high school girls, they would say to me, like, I'm not gonna get that. So I'm not gonna get that. I'm not gonna, you know, I would apply for a student exchange, but like, that's $2,000. I don't have that. And I would say, well, how much is the application? They'd say nothing. I'm like, so it costs nothing to apply, right? So for me, starting like the White House internship was not paid. I had no idea how I was gonna pay for that. But in the end, I figured it out, right? And so for me, I was like, when we can start this program in Philadelphia, we take 12 sophomore and freshman girls in high schools, and we basically take them through a 2-year program. They learn global education, they learn languages. We take them to like DC, New York, all over. They get their passports. Their parents get their passports. A lot of times their parents don't have their passports. And then at the end of the 2 years, then we take them on an international trip. So we have to do it every 2 years because we don't have a lot of money. So, and only 12 girls because we don't have a lot of money. So the first year we did London and Paris, and that was 2016. And last year, 2019, we did London and Madrid. And I have a really great network in London. So I'm able to we go over there for 8 days. We partner with the university where we stay. They go through a whole program over there as well. Like they go to the embassy. And it's a lot of work, you know, but I think that, you know, for me, now we've seen the first class of girls, they're in college and now they're studying abroad. There's 3 of them studying abroad from my class. And that to me is like, we did our job, like we planted the seed. And I never want to give the illusion that travel is unaffordable. You know, like we have this whole Instagram culture now where people see like somebody in the middle of the Maldives, like, you know, with a pretty flowy. And I'm like, yeah, but if you just go from here to like Maine, that's traveling. Like, don't be ashamed to feel like that's not traveling, right? So we have that, and then we started a scholarship actually for girls in college. And so we awarded for the first time last year 2 scholarships. One for a girl from Philadelphia who's in college, going to college in Philadelphia, who's accepted to study abroad. She got $2,000. And another one for a black girl who's just anywhere in the country, and she also got $2,000. So that's a program that I started, and it's good. It's a lot of work, but we've seen the results. And I mean, and for me, like, you know, we're shifting gears to do more scholarships now, because now there's so many places that teach girls about studying abroad. But I would say that's the nonprofit that I started.
So is there anybody who you've looked up to, or whose style of leadership you've looked up to throughout your career?
That door. Keep going. So I think style of leadership, you know, I would say, and I know this sounds corny, this really sounds corny, so it's a default. But I would say Barack and Michelle Obama, and I would say this, because I watched them under pressure. Like, I've watched them get death threats, I've watched their kids be, I've watched it all, and somehow, some way, they have remained calm. I don't know. I don't have any children, but I tell you one thing, if somebody was talking about a child, I would probably show up at your front door, right? Some way, they stayed so calm, and they led a lot of times in silence. And that's not something that I even know how to do, but I think that for me, that was such a leadership quality, because there are so many times where they could have snapped out. Like, I mean, there's so much that happened. And so they remain calm. When people call them racist things, sexist, say Michelle Obama look a monkey. Like, I would have found the person that called me that straight at their job. Like, you know, so I think that, like, for me, you know, their leadership style and how they were really helped me shape who I was as a leader, because that's when I knew that, like, I didn't always have to fight back. Like, sometimes the fight isn't instant. Sometimes the fight is long term. And they really showed me that. So I would say I look up to their leadership style. And then my dad. My dad's just my dad. Like, he's one of those, like, all right, Deesha, well, I'm gonna have to go to bed and get up, so whatever it is, it is. I'm like, that's a good attitude, Dad. Like, you know, so I think that, like, his carefreeness sometimes helps me too.
So if you could impart, you know, one message on today's youth about leadership in life, what do you think it would be from your experience?
I am not the one to do that. I would say about leadership and life, and life. I would say, gosh, this is hard because I'm 42 now, right? So I'm not in the same space that I recognize I'm not in the same space you all are, and I sound like an old fogey person. But I think that what I would say is, life is extremely short. As much as you focus on your physical health and your academics, watch your mental health very closely, because what happens so many times is that, even I can speak about my parents never got healed from some things that happened to them. And then that passed down to me. And then before I know it, I'm manifesting things that I didn't even realize. Not taking care of myself, working so hard that I burned myself into like I want everybody to know that I'm the best. So I'm gonna burn myself into craziness. But that got me high blood pressure, right? And so now I was on 4 medicines. I'm only on 1 medicine. But I realized that, like, I didn't take care of myself enough, and I wanted to change the world so much that I forgot about myself. And that happens quickly, and it's not noble, right? It used to be cute to be like, well, I think about everybody but myself. But it's really not when your blood pressure's high, you're rushed to the hospital, like, you know, all these things. Preserve yourself. Like, honestly, we're gonna need you for a long time. Preserve yourself. Don't also look at mental health differently from physical health. Like, I always tell people that yesterday on my Instagram, which you all should check out, yesterday on my Instagram, I posted, like, my blood pressure from last year at this time, which was 210 over 132, right? I posted it yesterday, which is 137 over 74, right? That is drastic difference. I don't care what my body looks like. How cute am I gonna be if I look really great and I'm in a casket, right? So watch your mental health very closely. Talk to your friends. It's not, somebody's not weird, somebody's not whatever, they're going through something. So I think that I think is probably the most important thing that I think that we should watch out for, because the pressure, I think, on young people to change the world, to be the best, all these things, it's just like, that's all well and good, but like at what cost? At what cost? You know, I'd rather have somebody here and alive and working down the street at a Subway or wherever than somebody completely burnt out, you know, suicidal thoughts, whatever, on Wall Street, any day of the week. So I think that balance yourself and know that there's a place for you here, and never feel like you don't deserve the opportunity. Like if you're there, it's because you deserve it. If you didn't get it, it just wasn't for you. Keep it moving. So I think that had I took all those lessons back then, that I would have probably got my life together sooner, but eventually, obviously, it did come together. But yes, that's what I'd say.
So now do we have any questions from the audience?
Questions about anything? Great. I just can't sing. Do you want a microphone?
Hi, the funding for the overseas, bringing the kids abroad is a fantastic idea. How did you get funding for that? Did you get grants for that? And,
That's a great question. Thank you for your kind words. I don't know how to do grants. I don't know how to do any of that, right? And I think that when you have this really great idea, people love to tell you how to do things. They're like, go apply for this grant. And you're like, how do you do that? Like, you just write the grant for me and then I'll sign it. So we applied for so many grants, and we basically got denied from almost every one of them. Partly because, this is partly the reason why, is because when people look at our program, they see it's a great educational program. It's wonderful for kids, wonderful for young Black girls, but there's so many other problems in the world today. Like there's homelessness, there's lack of education, there's kids are going to school not eating with clothes. Like there's so many other issues that they didn't see travel as a necessity. That these kids, so we were bumping heads against other programs for funding, right? So I think that's why we got turned down from a lot. But how we did fundraisers like everyone else at Applebee's and all those fun things. But then what we did was I get paid to speak usually, and so when instead of an organization saying, we'll pay you $5,000 to come in here, I'd say, well, how about you do $4,000 to my organization instead? Because we're also a 501c3. So I would say, you get the credit and we get something. So I would go speak, and then I would say just $2,000 or whatever. Then we actually learned how to do the donation matching in the workplace. And we got a lot of money that way, where we're on all the registers where you work, it says you can donate to a cause. So we got a lot of money that way as well. But also even GoFundMe, my friends and family really came out and supported it. We got all airline partnerships. We never got any of those approved. Hotel partnerships, none of that ever got approved. But London, universities over in London, they did stuff for us. I think that our biggest issue is people always say, I want to come spend time with the girls and talk to them. And you're like, I have enough people talking to them, you got any money? At the end of the day, it's just we love your experience, but we don't need somebody else going to talk to them. Right. We need somebody else saying, even if you have a partnership with a luggage company, somebody helped us out with that and got all the girls' luggage. Right. And she's like, I can't donate money, but I have a great person who works at this organization who does luggage. And I was like, whatever, we'll take whatever. Yeah. Or Estee Lauder saying we can't give a grant, but we'll give you a travel kit with all the stuff inside of it. So that's how we really kept it running, but that's why we can only do it every 2 years. And that's how we can only do it with 12 girls. And so we're thinking now, after every class, we take 8 months off. And so we're ending that 8 months. So I'm like, ooh. So we're going to be recruiting a new class, but every year we think this is such a great program, how can we expand it more? So one of our things now is to probably do a class only for 1 year and then do more scholarships, and then we're also going to start planting it in other cities. And so that's our next plan. But the grant situation is just tough. But we're going to keep trying. We don't stop. We'll keep trying. So yeah.
Good for you. Sounds like a great idea.
Thank you so much. Thank you. There's a hand right there.
So I loved how you talked about the Pope coming to the White House, and you seem so, when you're telling us the story, you seem so calm about it. But I imagine that day you woke up, and I imagine you were stressed out, but maybe not. But
no, I just prayed. I did pray for real. I was like, God, if there's anything that you're gonna make work, it needs to be right. Yes. No, I was extremely stressed. That was the first night I actually spent the night at the White House, and so I didn't know. I lived probably 20 minutes from the White House on the train. but also I didn't know how crazy it was going to be getting in the next day with everybody coming, right? Because the Pope did something at the White House, but then he also like rode through the city a little bit. So people got, they were like so excited to see him. And so I said, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get in next day. I have to be here at 4:30 in the morning. I just spent the night at the White House. And so I spent the night at the White House on the floor. And I didn't sleep at all. Like I maybe slept 2 hours because I also was worried about the weather because we had 12,000 people coming in this great ceremony outside. We had a plan for inside, had it obviously rained, but it was like that weird shower overnight that was like dew rain, and we didn't know. And I was like, oh my goodness, like if I can't have to cancel this outside, I have to do this by 6:30. So I really didn't sleep watching the weather. Like calling military aides every hour, like, what's the weather? What's the weather? Like, Deesha, just talk to us. It has not. What's the weather? Just talk to us. I'm like, I'm just checking. It was extremely stressful. Not only that, my dress ripped the morning of, like the armpit part ripped. Y'all, there's a lot going on. And for the Pope, you have to wear something very obviously dignified down to here, and it was like the one dress I had that was compliant. And so I remember reaching my arm and hearing a rip. And the housekeepers of the White House like, get here. And they sewed me into the dress. And so I was like, I don't know how I'm getting this off. But it was extremely stressful, but I had to trust that everybody was going to do their job correctly. And that whether I was stressed or not, it was going to happen, right? And so I think that, minute by minute, every minute counts. Like, and then there's all these leaders that come that have to meet the Pope. And then the Pope doesn't speak English, and so you have the translator too. And I think that I was all good until we got upstairs after the ceremony was done. We were like, the Pope was swaying to the choir. I was so happy. And I think that when we got upstairs, I was like, obviously not in the press shot. The Pope signing the book, the president first lady behind this translator, everything's going great. And then everybody gets up, and I'm just like, okay, we're done here, and the president's like, Deesha, come here. And I'm like, oh. And I was like, yes, sir. And he's just like, I wanted you to meet our Holy Father. So I didn't get to meet him because my job is to not be in the front. My job is to make sure everybody else gets their handshake, And I was just like, and I wish we had a picture. It's a really great picture. And you can actually kind of see the thread too. It's a funny thing. But nobody else noticed it's there. And I looked so tired. And the Pope shook my hand and he said, and the president said, this is the woman who put everything together for you today. And I was like, he's just like, thank you. And he gave me like this coin. I was like, oh my God, I have nothing to give you back. And he gave me and the translator, and Pete Souza, the photographer, took a picture at that moment, which I never knew existed until months later. And Pete's like, oh, did I ever give this to you? I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my gosh. And the Pope is smiling. I'm smiling but the best moment was when he got in the car and left, because I was like, out of my hands. But the problem was but the other thing is the next day we had the president of China coming. So there was no break for me. And the New York Times wrote an article the week before that was like, this is rookie Super Bowl, like Super Bowl of events in Washington. Like, we don't know who she is, but good luck. all right, we'll figure this out. And the next day I had to do this all over again with a different leader, right? So, a more unpopular one, like not 12,000 people came out, but still. But I think that of course I was nervous and freaking out, but what are you gonna do? Like, it has to get done whether you're ready or not. So I just said I have to trust. Everything's gonna go okay. I got my flats on. I'm sewing into this dress. Like, my Spanx ain't working. That's the only regret is my bad Spanx in the photo. I'm like, I wish I would've known I got that photo. But the Pope was happy. The president was happy. Everybody was we had no protests. There was a Pope that came to another presidency. There was a streaker. And I was so let one person go out of line. Like, if one person would have stepped out of line, while we were on that lawn, I would have probably body slammed. I was just like, I was like, I don't want this whole thing to be marred by somebody running. But 12,000 people, not one person protested. Not one person yelled out a hand. Not one. Everybody was holding up pictures like their grandmother, but that was really it. So I think that was a crazy time. But how wonderful! How wonderful that I have that memory, right? So yeah, wow.
So you mentioned that you like to move around from project to project because when you're with something for too long, you kind of get bored. So do you ever feel like you've taken on too much at a time, and how do you deal with that?
Every day, all day. So that's a great question. I always feel like I take on too much at a time, but I I'm also old enough to know that that doesn't work, because when that happens, I spread myself so thin that I'm mediocre in everything. So I'm like, I'm gonna do all these things, but it's not possible to show up as your best self the way you want to show up when your intent of taking the project happens. So for me, obviously at the White House, I had no choice, right? Like we had different projects, but I think for me, since then, I have to say no to a lot of things that I love. I have to say no to a lot of things I think I should be involved with. I have to say no because I have to say no to invitations, because it's either like, I can't eat out tonight because my blood pressure's high with salt, or like I'm tired and I have to be up the next morning for this event, and I want to show up like I want to be there versus showing up because I kind of like it, right? So I think that what I started to do is I have to be, and you have to be, if this is your issue too, is like you have to be okay letting some things go. Like, and I don't know, I don't know you, but for me, I was afraid that people would think that I wasn't capable if I did not handle all of the things that I could handle. And so now I'm like, I can handle all of these things. And they'd be like, Deesha, you can't. Like, you messed this up, you're late to this, like you're doing this, like you're not showing up as your best self with these things. And so I had to let that part of my ego go, where I thought people would think bad about me if I wasn't the person that was doing everything. And that was hard for me, because I just did that like 2 years ago, to be honest. So I had all these years of just being like that. So what I do now is I say, you know what, like I can't be in charge of this project, but maybe Bridget's in charge of it. Like, Bridget, like, what help do you need with this? Like, I'll be here to help you, like, for a little support, but I have to be very clear, like, unfortunately, I can't commit myself to this right now, but like, if you need me to send an email for you or something small, I got you. Like, if you need me to bake a brownie or something, I got you. But I can't show up to this all the time, and you have to be okay with that, because again, burnout is real. It's extremely real. High blood pressure is very real. Stress is very real. Once you get into that pattern, you don't realize that you're even in it, and it becomes a way of life until it's too late, and like your school's suffering, or things that don't really matter are suffering. So I would say that that's how I dealt with it, is I had to check my ego, I had to realize what I love to do, and like, for instance, beGirl, my organization, which I love and adore, but when we were in Spain with those girls, I was like, oh no. Like, these girls on the last day, or actually the last 3 days, I was like, I cannot do this ever again. Like, y'all are drunk. This is why I did not have children. Like, y'all are crazy, And I'm like, maybe it's time for me to step back from that role and just support the next person that's going into it. Not only that, but I had to let go of the fact that I'm not the one that can do it best. There's other people that can do things good too. So why don't you let them have a chance, and they try it, and then you just support them. So that's how I did that. So, I don't know if does that help? Yes.
Hi Deesha.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
Yeah. So quick question. So you were born and raised in Philly, correct?
All day, every day, yes.
I love that. And you said you're part of the hip hop culture and you're a hip hop writer.
I was.
Okay, so the Lowell dance community is actually super huge for hip hop and urban street, and I'm a dancer myself as well. So I'd like you to talk more about how you got involved in hip hop, and all that, because I love the culture and community too.
Yes, I love the culture as well. So I think that for me, I've always loved the hip hop culture, and for me, when I was growing up, people always used to say hip hop was just rap music, and I used to be like, there's more to it. There's like graffiti, there's beatbox, and there's DJ, and there's all these things, and I was like, that nobody ever talks about, right? And so I started really dancing out in clubs all the time, like just like getting to know b-boys and b-girls and just hanging out. And then that was around the 90s, and then the 90s also was a time where rap music was getting a lot of flack for being against women, so a lot of sexism. And I used to be like, that's true, like there is a lot of sexism in rap, but there's also these women that hold the culture up that nobody talks about. These women dancers and graffiti artists and DJ. I'm like, they're so amazing, but nobody talks about them. So then I started writing about them out of nowhere. I was just like, it was like something called phillyhiphop.com, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but like, I want to interview like women that are in the culture, right? That took me to like the Rocksteady crew and getting to the Rocksteady crew in New York and being like, they have held up the culture since like the 70s, right? The dancing. But all people see is like the tagging graffiti and the bad rap music, but they don't realize what hip hop is. It's a global movement, right? And so for me, I always chose to really highlight those people that were holding the culture up. And it was before underground was like a thing, right? So like underground is really corny backpacking, like nobody knows what these kids are doing, but these are kids who like, they're artists, right? And so I always looked for the people that were holding up the culture that were never getting talked about outside of rap music. And so that's how I got involved, that's how I stayed involved. And even now, you know, when I was at the White House even, and we had a thing about there's this program that PBS wanted to do called American Music. And I looked at the roster and I'm like, first of all, I'm about to fall asleep looking at this thing. I'm like, second of all, like, where's hip hop on this? Like, what? And they're like, what? I'm like, we need a rapper, we need like a break dancer, and they were just like, oh, that's a great idea. And so we brought in a hip hop artist there, we brought in a break dancer, and everybody's like, this is really cool. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, you know, so I feel like, you know, that's how I was able to uphold the culture at every level that I went to, because I was like, we're not going to forget about what the hip hop culture is, and we're not going to let it be taken over by like commercialism. Like, that's fine. I want the culture to make money, but also let's not forget about the people that are still holding it up in neighborhoods, and these after-school programs are teaching kids how to be poets and to dance and to do, you know, graffitis and to murals. Like, we have a thing where we don't talk about that enough, and so that's kind of what I did, and how I got into it, and how I sustained it.
Did you ever dance?
I did. I danced for a number of years, and then 28 hit about, and I was like, nah. And so it's funny because like my students at Harvard were like, we want to see you dance. And I was like, do you want to take me to the hospital? I was like, which one would you like? How would you like this to happen? You know? And so yes, I did used to dance. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I miss it a lot. So yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions?
So you went to the internship in your late 20s, so non-traditional compared to the other college kids. How much trepidation did you have entering the opportunity? You said you kind of didn't believe in yourself at times, and were you accepted by the interns?
Was I accepted?
By the other interns?
I was. So I went when I was 30, and so at this point I'd already passed my 20s, and first of all, like if somebody told you right now, like go, despite what you think about the White House, it was like whatever. But if somebody said to you right now, like go apply to work at the White House, you'd be like are you talking to somebody behind me? Like who does that? You know what I mean? Like who work? We don't know how that. You think it's all friends and family and politicos. And so when I applied, how this happened is I always wanted to work. I thought Barack Obama was amazing, and I was like, this man's amazing. Like I love this man. Like I love what he does and what he talks about. But I was like I wouldn't say a nobody, but I was not notable, you know. And so when the election was happening against McCain, I'll never forget this, in 2008, my boss, who's amazing, who I still love, from my real estate company, was a Republican. And he's always like John McCain. That's me like, oh, okay. So Barack Obama was on the front of a magazine. I ripped off this picture of the magazine, I put it at my desk, just to annoy him. And I was like, I'm gonna work for this man. I'm gonna leave you and go work for him. It was a joke. Like it was not for real. And I was like, and my boss John, who I still love to this day, was like, ha ha, you're right. Like he's not gonna win and you're not going. And I was like, I know, ha ha. Oops. And so when Barack Obama did win, I was like, he won. And then John's like, yeah, he won, blah blah. And I was like, I'm gonna go work for him again, joking. And then about 6 months later, I got an application for a White House internship through like an AOL listserv. That's how long ago this was. And it said, you mentored a lot of people in the community. Please get this out to the girls that you mentored and men that you mentored. And they're like, the new president's looking for White House interns. And I was like, well, maybe I could do this. I was like, I'm sure there's a requirement about age, about some kind of like status, some kind of like, you gotta pay this, or you gotta go to Ivy League, or whatever. But there wasn't. All it said was you gotta currently be in college, or you had to recently return from the military active duty. And so I was like, that's me. And it said you had to write 2 essays. I'm like, well, I'm a journalist. Easy for me to write. And so I applied. And when I applied, I didn't hear anything for a really long time. So one night at 9:45 p.m., my phone rang. And it's an unknown number, so you know when it's an unknown number, you think it's a bill collector, right? So I was like, I answered the phone like super well. I was like, hello, and she's like, this is the White House calling for Deesha Dyer, and I was like, how may I help? You know? And then they were like, we wanted to set up an interview time for her internship application, and I was like, oh, this is Deesha. Like, I got really real then. And they said, well, let's do this tomorrow. And I said, well, I can do it right now. Because my whole thought process was, if you're calling me at 9:45 p.m., tomorrow anything can happen. You work at the White House. You could easily cancel an intern's interview. Like, I said, we could do, and they're like, you want to do it right now? Like, it's almost 10 o'clock. I'm like, right now. I did the interview. It went well, but on the other end of the call, on the phone, was like a 23-year-old kid from Iowa, right? And his name was Patrick, who I adore. But I was just like, who is this kid? Like, interviewing me, I'm like, you're being interviewed by a kid. And so he interviewed me, and it was one of these things where it was just like, and I say kid because, like, I'm 42, so it's okay. So he interviewed me, and I didn't hear anything again for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally I found out, it's very that part of the story of how I done that, but finally I found out, and when I found out that I got the internship, first thing my thought process was like, I don't have any money to do this, like this is unpaid. Like I don't know anybody in DC, where am I gonna live? And so I went on Craigslist. I don't advise anybody, especially if you're going to do this, y'all. And I went on Craigslist, and I was like, room for rent, So I found a room for rent, and these two people, they were getting divorced, and they were raising money for their divorce proceedings. And y'all listen, desperate times, listen. So they were renting out their oldest daughter's room who went to college so they could pay for their divorce. And I was like, how much is it? $300 a month. I'm like, sold. And so that's where I stayed for my internship. And then I went and applied for jobs like all over the city at like Kroger, Starbucks, everywhere. And I was like, I can't afford this. I'm making this work. I don't care what I have to do. But long and behold, I didn't have to. I applied for jobs, got a job at a grocery store, and I was like, I'll just do this on the weekends and nights so I have money to eat. And when I left for my internship, my real estate company, my boss, who's Luke McCain, still talking to this day, he was like, they did a fundraiser for me for $4,000, they raised, and then the head of the company gave me $10,000. And I was like, oh, I already signed the lease. But that's how I made it work. It's because I didn't know that I was going to get the internship, and that's why I say don't psych yourself out before you even apply. Because I had no idea I was getting the internship, and I had no idea I was going to DC with $14,000. That's really what got me to be able to do the internship. So I think that my hesitation was really that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't fit the bill, that I wasn't whatever. And that followed me for a very long time. I'd say that I just kind of shed that in my last year at the White House. The whole time I was there, I was like, I just went to community college. Even when I graduated in 2012, it was re-election. So I was like, I graduated. So I was like, okay, great, I graduated with my associates, we're done. And everyone's like, and they put me like a little party at the White House. And I was like, what is this for? They're like, because you graduated. I'm like, oh, it's just community college. And Barack Obama was like, don't you ever say it's just community college. We're so proud of you. Like, you graduated college while working at the White House. Like, I went home on the weekends, and I took online classes for all those years at the White House. So I would say that, like, for me, I just didn't believe that I was worthy of the opportunity. But the other people on the other end did. And what they were looking for was somebody different. And the other interns, when we got there the first day, and, like, I wish I had a picture of the first day, y'all, I looked a mess. I was like, I didn't know how you dress business, and so I wore like khakis. I had no idea. I went to Ross Dress for Less and bought this blazer. And I bought, right now these really are prescription, but back then I had great eyes. And I bought fake glasses so I looked smarter. And I had a hoop earring. I took it out and put this one in, this stud. And I was just like trying to blend in, but I realized we were all nervous. Like, everybody was nervous. Even the kids that went to Harvard and Penn were like everybody was on the same boat. So my fears were really inside of me. And at the White House, no one ever treated me, ever, like I was just a community college student. None of them ever were like, you're just an intern. That never happened, which really says that it was really internalized inside of me.
Any more questions?
Hi, I'm also an event planner and public servant. I loved what you said about creating memorable moments, and I'd love to hear some more advice on how to do that. And also, whenever I meet other planners, it's always like we share those war stories of like this crazy thing happened, or there was an elephant in the hotel walking around. And I'm sure you have some really interesting ones because the White House is such a unique venue.
Yes.
I'd love to hear a couple of those.
Am I still being recorded? Okay, this part y'all can't tell. Put your phones down. So goes back to Justin Trudeau. But it's not about like me. So you have to know everything. It's my job to know everything. Like, you know how to say their name, like what foods they like, their kids' names. Like, that's my job. And Justin Trudeau brought his mother-in-law to the White House. His wife and mother-in-law came, and we were upstairs. So the president and first lady, they bring the heads of state up to their private residence for like drinks and like hanging out and looking over the balcony and all this fun stuff, right? So y'all can't ever tell this is so off the record. Okay, so they're doing all that, and the first lady, this is a public country, she goes, how do you, she goes, I can't even tell the story straight face. She goes, how do you say his mother-in-law's name? I had zero idea how to say it. Are you taking a photo or recording? Sir, back to the back. This is extremely, okay. So I made it up, y'all. I made up how to say this woman's name. And I was like, Mrs. Blase. It's like, she's like French or whatever. It's like, Mrs. Blase. And she's like, got it, Mrs. Blase. I'm thinking, oh my God. I about to be so fired. Like, if she called, imagine the first lady of the United States calling head of state's mother-in-law the wrong name, especially on camera, right? So I'm just like, please don't call this woman's name. And Mrs. Obama must have had a sixth sense, and I was totally like not lying. And she never called her that name. Like she was like, yes, ma'am. And I was like, thank God. So that's probably the worst for me because Mrs. Obama was very particular about how to say people's names. She used to get upset if we did not know how to say somebody's name properly because she said that's just disrespectful. Like, we should know how to say somebody's name. And I understand, like, if people mess up my name, I'm like, my name is Deesha. You know, not Dijon, not mustard. You know, like, I get whatever. So I feel like that was probably my hardest moment because my breath, I held my breath until, that was the beginning of the night. And we had to go through dinner and cocktails and the receiving line and a show. That was like 3.5 hours. She could have said that woman's name wrong. And I was just like, so when they left, I was like, and then I looked up how to like say it for real, and it was like something French, like blah, so something. I was like, so it's not blasé? Like, I have lots of war stories, but that's like a slash funny one. But I would say, how do I make memories? Is I look at it like I want people to enjoy things from their perspective, not what I think they will enjoy. So if I'm having we had something called a kids' state dinner, where the first lady would have a kid from each state, they would compete with a healthy recipe, and they would come to the White House, and we had a fancy dinner for them, right? And we could have easily been like, what should we do with these kids? We asked kids, like, what do you think would make a really cool, like, state dinner? Like, how would you like? And they're like, lots of colors, and this, and the other, like, a fun entertainment, and this, we want something interactive, and we're like, that sounds great, right? So I think that I never took the opinion of just what I thought was cool. I'm 42. Like, I don't know what an 8-year-old wants to, how they want to do things. But maybe if I ask a couple 8-year-olds, like, what do you think is cool nowadays? Like, that's how I really, even clients I help now, I say, like, what message are you trying to convey? I want it to be memorable. I don't want people sitting on their butts the whole time. I want them to be able to take home something. I want them to be able to enjoy the food, have memories where they continue. I do a lot of nonprofit events now, and now it's like I have to make events where people will open their wallets, right? So that's making them feel so special, even if they're not super special. Like making them feel, even if they're mean to me, I'm like, this is not the purpose. The purpose is for them to say, this organization cares so much about me that I care about them, and I'm gonna open my wallet to help them do what they're doing, right? So I think for me is, I always try to do something different. Like I don't like, I'm not a good keynote, I don't want a keynote speaker where people feel bored. I want conversations, I want fun lights. If it's an event that's like a somber event, I want something more where people really feel like the pain and the agony of an event, to say we want to get involved somehow. So I think that that's how I try to do it. I try to get more people involved than just the people in the room. It's just if this is something for everybody, then everybody should be involved in this, right? We should be appropriate. I should make sure that we have accessibility for people with disabilities. I should make sure of that. Nothing's an inconvenience to me. So I think that that's how I approach event planning. And I've cut myself out of the little details. I'll do the creative part, but I don't want to do the napkins on the table. Listen, how you wipe your mouth is how you wipe your mouth, right? But I want to be what's the experience that you're going to have here, what you're going to walk away from. And so that's how I try to approach event planning.
Any more questions?
Ooh. How much time do we have? I'm also just staying down the street, so they're you can stay an hour.
So you're obviously a very busy woman. What prompted you to come to Lowell and speak, especially when the event got canceled?
Bridget Daniel, that's why. So talking to people, obviously, as you guys can see. But I also like being very real with people. Like, I think that when people look me up, or they look in, I've even had people be like, oh, you're not as fancy as I thought. I'm like, thanks. You know, like, I mean, if you open up Vogue magazine, and you're like, oh, there's Deesha in Vogue, or Marie Claire, like, she's on TV. That's lovely, and I'm very thankful for those opportunities, but that doesn't give you a background of who I am, right? And to me, sometimes when people look at that, they say like, oh, that's amazing what she did, and it's like so untouchable, it's so far, right? But when I come in person, it's just like, she really is a real person, and it's not that unattainable that I could do something that amazing, right? And so I think that that's what makes me always want to come speak to people, because I think I have, number one, a story to share, but it inspires people, which I didn't realize until after a million people were like, you're so inspiring. I'm like, really? Am I? But I think that, you know, what Rich and Daniel, I think, have created, you know, on their own, you know, and that they do this, and they're so, like, they got my flight and my hotel, which was crazy, and they changed stuff last minute for me. They had some food and some cheese and crackers back there for me. Like, that's amazing, particularly because, like, they want this to come to this part of the country. Like, they want the leadership thing to happen over here in Massachusetts. Like, that, I'm not too busy for that. Like, I'm never too busy for stuff like this. Like, for me, you know, sometimes it is an inconvenience. Like, I flew up today, right? Yeah, I flew up today. And I take the train tomorrow, right, back to New York, right? But I think that, you know, that's okay with me. Like, so what? You know, when people say that they're too busy to there's some things that I do say, like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. But, but when people say they're too busy to mentor, do other things, I question their time management a little bit, right? Because I'm just like, are you that busy? Was somebody that busy to help you to get where you were? They weren't, right? So how dare you say now that you can't do it because you're too busy? But you surely took the benefits of somebody not being busy to help you. So I look at it like, you know, it all, you know, I hope one day I'm sitting in the audience listening to them talk, right? Like, and that's that's the cycle of how this happens. But I'm a real person, and I think that was only presentable in person. So.
One last question.
And I've never been to Lowell. So
Can you stay? Can we have you?
Yes. What do I do up here? I'll find something to do. I'll go waiting. I'll find something to do. I bet the rent's cheaper than New York. It's not all that. Was that really your question? Oh, you're one in the front.
Yeah, you have dealt with a lot of stress. How do you practice self-care?
Yes, I laugh a lot, if you can't tell. I laugh at myself a lot. I say this as a person who has the income to have the privilege that I have to be able to do stuff like yoga, right? And I can go do meditation places. And right now I'm not working a 9 to 5. And I'm very lucky to be able to, the first time I take 2 months off of working a 9 to 5 to really address like financial things, right? To address like stuff with my parents, which stress me out. But I think that like I deal with self-care by really just being very honest with myself. And that's where it starts and where it ends. You can go to all the yoga classes you want, you can go do all the meditation you want, but if you're still lying to yourself and you're still trying to do everything, you're still all over the place, like all that stuff is not gonna help so much. Maybe if you're continuing to be stressed out, I had to get off the hamster wheel and say like, I'm tired, I'm out of breath, like I'm 42, like I gotta slow down or I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, right? So I practice self-care by putting limits and boundaries, even when it doesn't feel good, right? Even with my own family. You know, it's just like, I'm sorry, like I can't do this right now. And they're like, we can't believe, because they're so used to me always being able to do everything, that to them, it's like being mean if I say I'm not gonna do it. But I explain to them, like, I can't handle this. And people, it's so weird when you tell people, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. Like, I can't handle that. They're like they look at you like you have 3 heads, and you're just like, what? I can't. Like, I am sorry, right? So I think that, you know, I'm very lucky that I have a triangle of people that really help me out. I go to church, like every week I love my church. I have a personal trainer who I love, and then I go to therapy. So that triangle of things, within the middle, like yoga, meditation, writing, you know, but you have to balance that, because I still have to make income. So it's not like, I want people to be very clear that you don't leave the White House and walk out a millionaire. Like, we didn't. Like, you know, that's not gonna happen. When I left the White House, I had to file for unemployment. Like, I couldn't get a job right away, right? So I still have to make income. So there's still things I have to do, like go speak or go do whatever. But I have choice right now. But I think for me, self-care is, it looks like whatever you can afford and whatever you can do. Sometimes self-care is just drinking water and minding your own business. Like, that's free. Like, that's free. Like, mind your business and drink some water for free. Like, you don't need to pay for a meditation class, for a yoga class. Just go off by yourself and turn your phone off. Sometimes for me, me and my boyfriend have a no phone rule in the bedroom. Like, it's a no phone zone. Like, no phone zone. Like, so we're not gonna be on our phones at night because I get stressed out, anxiety over what's happening in the world. I feel like I gotta figure out how to fix it instead of going to bed. I get really ample sleep. I have blackout curtains, that really helps self-care. But I would say, like, it's whatever it looks like to you. There's no blueprint of what self-care is. It could be just dancing by yourself. It could be doing laundry. It could be whatever you want. For me, I love cleaning too. I love organizing and throwing stuff away. I just throw stuff away. I just throw stuff away. And my boyfriend's like, that's your White House memorabilia. I'm like, oh shoot, put it back in. But I'm just like, I'm cleaning. Spring cleaning, winter cleaning, fall cleaning, summer cleaning. But I think that's what I do. But I would say that there's still a level of anxiety because,